Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Every month I have such an inner turmoil about what to do for my Patreon videos. And this month actually, like 20 minutes before I was ready to record this, I was still trying to weigh my options because I really want to present videos to you that are enjoyable for you and that you're going to be able to get something out of it. It's difficult because I love all of my patrons and I've got such like a wide variety of people, from people just starting out and those who are already, pretty much all the way through with their kids. But today's video is going to be for those more, the younger moms who have younger children. And today I'm going to focus on how I teach reading. I can officially say that all of my kids are now readers. Kenzie, my youngest, is reading so well on her own. I barely even have to help her anymore. She can just pretty much pick up a book and just sit down on the couch and start reading it like, she's been doing it for months. And so this is really exciting to me. So I thought that I would share with you the different techniques that we've used to teach reading, because this is something that, like with the rest of my homeschooling style, I kind of gather resources from all different areas. I don't just take like one curriculum and stick to that and have that be the only thing that we do. I know that kids learn in so many different ways. And even with learning to read, you've got phonics, you've got whole language, there's people in different camps. I happen to think that they're both useful. Now I have one child who whole language was his thing. He was great with sounding out sight words, but when it came to phonics, he would just sit there and cry. On the other hand, I had a son who could not memorize a sight word to save his life, no matter how many times we went over them, and it ended up being phonics that came to the rescue for him. So the rest of my kids, though, really did best with a mixture of the two, and so that's what I've continued doing, because if you're going to touch on all of the areas, you're sure to hit that one spot that your kids are going to be able to connect with the most. So I do have a spine when it comes to teaching reading. The main thing that has helped me to teach for my four youngest kids, the best and the easiest is, this is like, it looks like it's been through a war because I've used it a lot, but teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. I have used this with Luke, Ireland, Summer, and Kenzie. It helped me with Luke, who was really having a difficult time learning to read, but we started this with him when he was 8, and a month later he was reading chapter books. I kid you not. And and then I used it with my daughters, who learned a little bit earlier than him, but all kids learn to read on their own timeline. But this has always, for the last 4 kids at least, been the spine of what we've been doing. Now the question is, did I do this every day with them? No, I did not. I actually did this book with them every other day. And the reason that I did this with them every other day is because for some of my kids it was starting to get monotonous with the lessons, and I also was noticing that there wasn't as much writing practice as I would have liked, because I think that a lot of times when children are writing the words, it helps them to make that connection in their mind of what it is saying. So what I did was I alternated that with phonics, and I have been using Adventures in Phonics since we started homeschooling. So I've been using this for like years and years now, and it has worked really well with us. So on the days that we were not doing one lesson in Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, I would just have my child do one page from Adventures in Phonics. So just alternating, just using this simple method. And I will even say that Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, it says teach your child to read in just 20 minutes a day. I didn't even take 20 minutes a day with my kids with this book. It usually took about 10 minutes a day in Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And the reason that for that is, like with everything, I tweak it, and there's a lot of repetition in this. And my kids don't go for that. So I will skip the repetition, and I just, you have to know your own kids. You have to know what they handle. So sometimes it might say to do an exercise 3 times, and we might do it 1 time, and that will be enough for my kids. And so that's why it took us a shorter length of time. But the alternating of these two was really like the foundation of teaching my kids to read. Now, I did use some other methods supplementally that supplementally is a word, right? I don't know. Well, you know what I mean. So I did put some other activities into their learning routine, or the things that they did every day, to help them also to build on their reading skills. So one of them is with spelling. So I started doing spelling with Kenzie when she was in kindergarten. I wasn't going to do spelling with Kenzie when she was in kindergarten, because I thought, okay, well, we'll just start this in first grade. I want to start, just teaching her to read first, and we'll worry about spelling later. She wanted to be like everybody else, though. So she asked me if she could have spelling words. So I did start spelling with Kenzie in kindergarten, and I would only have her write her spelling words 2 days a week. And what I noticed with Kenzie's spelling was that it was helping her to learn sight words that we were not necessarily sounding out in her Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons or her phonics book at that time. So the spelling helped me way more than I thought that it would. I should say it helped her way more than I thought it would, and I'm actually glad that I started doing it with her early. And again, it was nothing major. I would give her, I think in kindergarten, I only gave her 5 words a week, and I would have her write them 2 times a day, and every day I would have her read the words to me, or if she didn't know them, I would read them to her. But that was really a good way for me to help her with some additional words that she was not learning in her other books. Now, something else that we did that really helped with her reading was Copywork. Now, usually for the older kids, when I think of the Copywork, I'm really focusing on them. I want them to see where the capitals go. I want them to see where the punctuation goes. But with Kenzie, when she's younger, well, and even now she's 7 and she's reading, but what I like to do is I will write a Copywork verse on the board, and we will all read it together, and I will point at each word as we're reading it. This is something else that I know has helped immensely when it comes to teaching her to read, because we were all able to visually see this on the whiteboard. We all read it together, and even if she didn't know the word right away, she heard her siblings saying it. And this is another way that helped her learn how to read. Now, this actually, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons says 100 lessons, right? Well, I noticed that halfway through the book, and all kids are different, but halfway through the book, Kenzie really didn't need it anymore. And I know that in the beginning of the book it says that no matter what, you should still go through to the 100th lesson. But what I actually did was, when I saw that she was doing really well, I kind of flipped forward like 30 lessons, and I had her read that. She read it like that. So then when I saw that she could do that, I actually flipped to the very last passage that she was supposed to read in the 100th lesson, which was pretty long. It was like 1.5 pages long, maybe 2 pages long. She read it like nothing. So I knew that there was really no point in her going through the rest of the book when she already knew how to read the last lesson. It clicked that quickly for her. And a lot of kids will do that. They will just get to that point in time where a light bulb goes on, and they're like, oh, and then they finally get it. And that's so exciting for a lot of kids. And that's very often when you will see them, asking you to read to them, or asking if they can read a book, wanting to go to the library, asking if there are any books that they can read. And this is what Kenzie is doing right now. So since I saw that she no longer needed that, I stopped doing that. And I also stopped doing the phonics book, because she already knows all of her sounds, and she is getting all of the additional writing in with her spelling and with her copywork. And she's also doing a printing book, which I'm doing more for her penmanship than for her actual reading. But the spelling and the copywork are still really helping her. Instead of doing the Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons now, though, she feels like a big kid, because now she has silent reading. And so what I've been using for her for silent reading, I try to look for the like the step-by-step, the early readers for kids. Unfortunately, a lot of them have like no plot that you can make out, and they really don't make any sense, and so it's hard to hold the child's attention with stories that are just kind of mumbo jumbo just so that they can get easy words in there for kids. So I try to steer clear of those. But if you look for the earlier readers. It's easy to find readers that are actually going to make sense and that your kids are going to like reading. Like, I wish that I had it with me now so I could show you, but she just finished, I think it's a leveled reader, and it was about ants because we were just doing an ant unit study. So she was able to read that one so well, she didn't need any help with it at all. Now, she finished that, and we haven't gotten back to the library, and she said to me, what can I read now? And so I went through some books, and she picked this book. So this is the one that we're actually reading now. And this one, even though it's a little bit, not much, but it's a little bit above her level, what I've started to do is I sit down with her and I will read one page and she will read one page. And that way, if she doesn't understand a word, I can just tell her right away what it is. And you know, I'm not one of those moms that when she asks me what the word is that I will make her sound it out. I know that a lot of people do that. With me, I've noticed with my kids that frustrates them. When they are reading a book, they want to be able to understand the book. And in order to understand the book, they need that fluency. They need it to keep going. And if you stop in the middle of it and have them sound out a word, especially if it takes them a while, they get frustrated and they're not going to want to continue to read with you anymore. Yes, there is a time for them to sound out words, but I honestly think that when you're sitting and reading with your child, that's not the time that you want to do that. But anyway, teaching my kids to read, I'll tell you, it was one of the scariest thoughts that I had when I started homeschooling. I had no idea if I was even going to be able to teach my kids to read. And you know, you always have that thought in your mind, oh, well, I wasn't trained to do this. Well, you know what? My mom taught me how to read before I was even in kindergarten. I was reading when I was 4 because she said that I used to sit and cry because I didn't know how to read. So when I was 4, she taught me. And I remembered that, and I thought, well, if my mom can teach me to read, I can teach my kids to read. And you know, you can too. You just have to have confidence that this is a natural skill, and the bond that you have with your child is going to make it so much easier. Now, some tips that I do have, though, for when you're teaching your child to read is don't push them. Don't try to compare them to other kids in their grade level. I made the mistake of doing this with one of my daughters. When she was in 1st grade, I would get so frustrated because I was doing 1st grade readers with her and she was having a difficult time with them. And I used to get anxious. She would notice that. She would get anxious. She would sit and cry. It was not a fun time. And I wish that I would have known then that it is perfectly natural for kids to learn to read when they are ready. I just kept picturing her not being on the same level as her peers, and that's what really made it stressful for both her and me. Now, today, thankfully, she does like to read and she has no issues with reading. She's a teenager now, but I know that this is something that a lot of kids will end up having an aversion to reading if they are pushed into it too early, or if you expect them to be able to complete skills that they might not be developmentally ready for that. So, you know, just let them learn on their own time. You don't have to compare them with anyone. Just let them be who they are and follow in a time that they are ready to do things. So so some kids will be ready to learn to read when they're 4. Some will be ready to learn to read when they're 6, and yet other kids will not be ready to learn to read until they're 8. And I know that from experience because I have a child who didn't learn to read until he was 8. If you would look at him today, though, if he would be reading next to his brother who is 1 year older than him, you wouldn't be able to tell which one learned when he was 6 and which one when he was 8. There is literally no difference in their skill level anymore. It doesn't matter. So if you want your child to have the potential to enjoy reading, because let's face it, even if you don't push kids, there are kids who are just not going to like reading because everybody has different interests, and that's okay. I know that we all, as homeschool moms, we want our kids to enjoy reading, and we look at reading as like the be all and end all of education. But remember that as wonderful as books are, and however much you love reading, I love reading a lot, that is not the only way to learn. So if your kids, if they are reading but they don't particularly enjoy it, yes, encourage them to read. I would still have them read every day, but if they aren't bookworms, don't feel like you've done something wrong, because some people, some kids, some adults just don't like that. But if you allow them to do it in their own time, you are more likely to have a child who at least does not hate it and feel stressed out whenever they think about doing it. So anyway, I hope that this has helped you a little bit in giving you some tips on what to do to help your child learn how to read. And that's all that I have for you today. And I just want to thank you so much for being my patrons. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you have a great day.